Is Kokomi the best character in Genshin Impact? Well, unless you're me and you're a total Kokomi simp, then no, from a meta standpoint she's not necessarily the best. But for how much backlash that she received upon her release, Kokomi has actually proven that she's an extremely unique character that theorycrafters are turning to for the newest meta teams. This brings up the question, why are theorycrafters using Kokomi more now compared to her release, and what are the most popular teams with Kokomi? Today, I'm going to give you the biggest reasons as to why Kokomi is a hot topic right now, as well as some of the insights on the most popular teams that you've probably heard of, like Sukokomon and the Kokomi variant of the Morgana team. As someone who really just likes to play Kokomi no matter where I go, I still find a lot of these meta/theory crafting teams quite interesting. Seeing the changes both in builds and opinions surrounding Kokomi has inspired me to just talk about some of the changes in the recent patches. First things first, the simplest reason as to why Kokomi is getting more recognition is because her name is not Xingqiu or Bennett. As funny as this may sound, just about every single meta team uses one or even both of these two supports. The Raiden national team, International Child, the classic national teams, Hu Tao teams, you name it. Spiral Abyss has two halves, and when you front load one side with Xingqiu and Bennett with the Raiden national team for example, you're going to need some other support character on the other half, and that's where Kokomi comes in. Kokomi fills a huge gap when you don't have Bennett and Xingqiu available because she can keep your team super healthy with a ton of heals, and even buff your team depending on how you build her, which brings me to the next reason as to why she's gotten a little more popular. Reason number 2, Kokomi's builds are pretty cheap and very effective at providing buffs to your characters or increasing her own damage. The new artifact set, Ocean Hued Clam, is a blessing for Kokomi players because it puts her ridiculous healing to good use, and the artifact set is valuable no matter what playstyle you prefer to use Kokomi with. But that's not the only thing that has kept Kokomi's builds afloat in the theory crafting space. The 4-set Tenacity of the Millelith and the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayer's Catalyst are both powerful tools that buff the attack of other characters and fits perfectly with Kokomi's supportive capabilities. Even the prototype Amber is a pretty decent option that Kokomi can use to alleviate the issues of other characters that have super high energy requirements. Last but not least, the biggest reason as to why Kokomi is a super helpful commodity in the theory crafting space is because her hydro application is unmatched. No other character that's currently in the game can provide consistent hydro application on multiple enemies. Xingqiu is limited to single target, while Mona has a little bit of downtime on her elemental skill. Kokomi can refresh the entire duration of her jellyfish when she uses her elemental burst, which gives her a valuable niche that has only gotten even more important since her release. So now you know a little bit about why Kokomi is being used more often by the non-casual side of the community, but it's now time to answer the question of what teams are the most popular among these serious players. To address the elephant in the room, let's start with the most recent buzz about the Sukokomon team. Sukokomon stands for Sucrose, Kokomi, and Pokemon. The team name is quite silly, and how it's derived is also quite silly. The team consists of Sucrose, Fischl, Xiangling, and Kokomi, where essentially Sucrose is just a Pokemon trainer with Kokomi's jellyfish, Oz, and Guoba. As simple as this may sound, this is a heavily theory-crafted team that puts difficult concepts into practice. Additionally, Kokomi is a must-have for this team, unlike other teams that feature Kokomi as a replacement. I could spend a long time just explaining the theory and rotations around this team, but I want to keep this video short, so here's a brief breakdown of what this team actually does. For those who don't know, Electrocharged is a unique reaction because when you create the reaction, the elements are not consumed, and instead the Hydro and Electro persist on the enemy affected by the reaction. This is super important because, for example, when we swirl with Sucrose, you'll get not one but two swirls because both Hydro and Electro were available to react with Sucrose's Anemo. You might think that was a lot of information, but that's just the beginning of the Sukokomon team. Now we can combine Guoba to get even more reactions out of Sucrose. And no, I'm not talking about Guoba's flame, I'm talking about Guoba himself. Guoba has a special property that applies pyro onto Guoba himself when you see the exclamation point above his head. Sucrose can take this pyro that he applies to himself and swirl it to react with the Hydro and Electro from Electrocharge to create both overload and vaporize reactions. So in the end, this team gives us Electrocharged, Overload, Vaporize, and Swirl all simultaneously. Sucrose will often run Sacrificial Fragments for a ton of EM to boost these reactions that she's creating, while Kokomi can pretty much run any weapon, but theorycrafters like to recommend the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers. The team is super strong and super fun to use, but again, I want to remind you that this team is very hard to put into practice. To get the maximum potential that I just explained, you'll need to swirl Guoba with the right timings, which can be very hard to pull off consistently. A brief summary of what you want to do is place Oz down first, place Kokomi's Jellyfish down second, and place Guoba down third. Guoba needs to be last in the rotation so that right after we can switch into Sucrose and do one normal attack into an elemental skill for the correct timing on swirling Guoba. Aside from that, I'm not going to explain the in-depth rotations, but hopefully you at least understand why the team is so strong, and because of it, why Kokomi's value in the theory crafting circle has skyrocketed. If you want a team guide on how to build and play the rotations of the Sukokomon team, definitely let me know down in the comments below. Those kinds of videos take a long time to research and edit, but if it's as popular as something like the national team, I'm definitely willing to do it. Anyways, let's move on to an easier team that also features Kokomi. This team is of course the Kokomi Morgana team, or simply just a Kokomi Freeze team. As a quick refresher for anyone who doesn't exactly know about the original Morgana team, it consists of Mona, Ganyu, Diona, and Venti. In Kokomi's case, she replaces Mona as the off-field Hydro application. Even though Kokomi doesn't provide nearly as much damage buffs as Mona's Elemental Burst, she serves as a decent replacement because her build is super cheap, her Hydro application is more consistent than Mona's, and she also provides more survivability to the team. To account for the buffs that you miss out by not running Mona, many theory crafters and myself included like to recommend running the 4-set Tenacity of the Millelith to provide a constant 20% attack buff in these freeze teams. The Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers Catalyst is the go-to weapon for these freeze teams, but the Prototype Amber is the second best option if you find yourself lacking energy to use your elemental burst off cooldown. Overall, in the case of the Morgana team, Kokomi is an option that is very casual player friendly because she is easier to use compared to Mona. Another plus that theory crafters note when using Kokomi in the Morgana setup is that it allows you to run a second cryo DPS character rather than relying on Diona. So aside from Ganyu or Ayaka, you can choose to run Rosaria or even a future cryo character like Shenhe. And of course, in regular freeze teams, pretty much the exact same thing applies. When Kokomi is combined with the 4-set Tenacity of the Millelith and the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers, you can make any cryo DPS character a monster damage dealer. The two most popular options are Ayaka and Rosaria together to round out the freeze team. Together, the Kokomi Morgana team and the standard Kokomi Freeze team are both fantastic options that I've used to 36-star Abyss countless times on both my main account and my free-to-play account. Most importantly, they free up the use of Bennett and Xingqiu to be used on the other teams that you like to enjoy. And with that, that's all I have time for today. What do you think of Kokomi, and if you have her, where are you using her right now? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this little entertainment/discussion video, you can support me in various ways by joining my Discord, following me on Twitch, subbing to the YouTube channel, or whatever people do nowadays. Other than that, it's the same as always. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.